Okay, there is some other news that I think we should talk about if we're done with the walkout subject.
That's the
obviously,
end of the Three Horsemen. Now we'll talk about some other stuff.
Obviously, the only league running right now is LPL, and I've seen a few of the matches, but I haven't really dove in yet, even though there have been quite a few bangers. But I think also one of the announcements that came out today was that Sjokz is not going to be participating in the summer split of LEC. Obviously, Sjokz has had some really shitty, unfortunate personal issues that were outside of her control, including, deaths in her family. And so I think it's understandable that she wants to take a break. She says she's going to take a break from all events up until the LEC playoffs, I guess, the live event and Worlds. So, and she said, that she implied rather that she hasn't been booked as talent for those events yet. But would like to participate in them, but is currently just going to take a break and maybe do those events or some CS events if she's invited later in the year.
I mean, it's almost implied maybe I Am Cologne. That's in August, I believe, which is obviously, I think she's appeared in past ESL.
No, I don't think. Yeah, she's appeared there, but I don't think I Am Cologne, because that would still be in the window of the LEC summer split. So I think she wants to do it
second
after
for the year. That's in August. Monte, the secret with esports is this. They make all the heavy lifting on certain words in the sentence. But if you read it really quick. No, look, I'll say it. We even did an episode on this channel that was a celebration of Sjokz's career, where we had an art contest where people made all this amazing art. Some of it actually was amazing. There was one guy made this one where it was like an art piece where every leaf in a fucking image was a different color scheme that represented something thematically about Sjokz's career in a country she'd worked with. People were going fucking next level on this shit. So we've already celebrated a career, one of the all-time greats. The problem is, in her particular case, I've seen some people take the mental health break where, I just know behind the scenes, they immediately just began streaming, eating pizzas, drinking sodas, and going, oh, I'm getting fucking into it. And I was like, is that really a mental health break? Bro, okay. Hers is obviously a legitimate one. I mean, she's someone who's actually struggled with this. If you've ever followed her social media, she's either the best method actor ever, or she's been through a lot of turmoil this year. She's had many, many times where if you don't know, she suffers from insomnia, and she obviously has had anxiety or depression over some of the things that have happened in her life. So no, I think that's, by the way, also someone who's had a mega tenured career beyond when she was negotiating with Riot, whenever it was last year. Someone who's almost never taken breaks. She's just been going the whole time for 10 years now or something. So I think it's actually a totally justified time to take a break. Wish her well.
Can I ask you both, though, as you've both obviously done talent on a lot of different events and so on, obviously, as you say, from the outside perspective, it fully justified. I have no reason to believe that, this isn't something that she should do probably for herself. But the only slight issue, or maybe there isn't an issue at all, but as two people who have worked a lot of events and so on, does any part of you think, fuck you, when you see, taking a break, but I'll be back for LEC Finals and Worlds? It's like...
I don't know. Deficio retired from casting and then casted a Worlds. So
fair enough. Yeah, true.
But it is kind of
I did get salty about that. But
here's the real problem. Everyone knows this. I think she even herself implied this. One of the things that does make a lot of people feel very anxious as talent is you always think. This is what LS thinks, by the way, guys. Why won't stop doing every region. They all think every day I take off could be the end. And what happens is, as soon as I say I'm not doing it, I might lose all my steam, all my credibility, and people will hire me. Now, that's not true. They will hire Moses and LS and Sjokz. Of course they will. But the feeling is, if I don't make it really clear, Rich, that I'll still come back for some of those if I'm available. If you don't do that, fans will repeat on Reddit 1 million times for the updates, and they all repeat what each other said. They'll just all go, well, Sjokz is taking a break. Sjokz isn't going to be here this year. And because they'll keep doing that, I get it. You might actually worry, wait, I'm almost building PR against getting hired again. So I know why you might do that as an insurance angle, sort of but I just want to make sure people know I am going to work events again in the future, in second half of the year, whatever, Sure. I can see both sides of it.
I obviously Quick Shot did this as well, right? Yep. He took a break for a Worlds, which I think is understandable.
I can break. I think it was last year or something. Was it?
Look, guys. It was a couple years ago, but it's like
last year from the
Medic,
LEC. He took it for Worlds as well, right?
Yeah, Captain Flowers decided to stay home and do his own stream, which I thought was totally reasonable. All I can say is for you guys is that for casters, the schedule is really brutal. I've run the circuit, and I've run it in a way that only really the LPL casters do right now, in which I was casting 10 best of threes across 5 days a week throughout the entire year, and then heading into World Championship and all of this events. And you have to travel, and because of the way that Riot runs the events, you're traveling to a different place every week for World, so you're literally gone for 5 or 6 weeks a lot of the time. It's hard. Like, it's very, very difficult. And so after many, many years of doing this, I think it's totally understandable why people would want to take a short break. But I also think we have to examine the broader ecosystem of esports. Like, I'm sure Sjokz gets paid well by the LEC. She's one of the few people who fights for her value, as we saw when she kind of held out from the early days of LEC last year when she wasn't on the broadcast because her negotiations appeared to have broken down. But I also think that right now it's better to be in Counter-Strike because there's at least multiple tournament operators between Blast and, ESL. Also, ESL doesn't really care about losing money right now because they're, shooting for market share. And they're funded by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So, they're in a place where they can actually pay potentially a lot more money. And, straight up, CS casters make more money, the good ones, than the good League of Legends casters do. That's just true because there's competition within the ecosystem for good talent. And as you'll see, again, back to latest news, Richard Lewis put out an article today, if you go look at his Substack or his Twitter, talking about how now ESL and Blast are trying to leverage exclusivity, or at least semi-exclusivity, with talent because they think it's valuable. So clearly the talent is more valued in the Counter-Strike space. And with the new version of Counter-Strike coming out, maybe that's a really attractive option for somebody like Sjokz, who the Counter-Strike community really likes. She's excellent at her job, and perhaps she could go do something that's much more profitable there. She has literally taken time off of League of Legends to go do, Counter-Strike events. Like, that's been something she's done.
I think this actually... Oh, sorry. Sorry, no, I was just going to say, I do think this, because this is something we've actually talked about before, where obviously the fact that she did it and was successful is obviously great or whatever, but I think it'll be interesting to see from Riot's perspective how Summer Split goes without Sjokz, in the sense that it's always been my contention that because of how Riot models their hiring and firing now of casters, I was actually really surprised that Riot did cave to Sjokz, because I actually don't think it will have any impact on viewership whatsoever. But the only way you could ever know that is if she takes a split off. And I think now you're actually going to see that. And I don't want this to be correct necessarily, at least not for those reasons. But I think they might actually just look back at the summer split and be like, why the fuck are we paying Sjokz 3x what we're paying this person, when actually the desk host role has no impact on viewership? And I assume that's what happened with Dash to a certain extent. Another guy who is really good, in my opinion, at the desk host job. And they were probably like, wait, but it doesn't actually matter. He could be as good, or this is such an established plug and play product at this point. It doesn't actually really matter if we have Sjokz for 3 times the money, or Dash for however much the money, or the Dracos fills in. It doesn't actually impact viewership, and I think you'll see it won't impact
quick
viewership.
shot, I imagine he'll do it.
Yes.
I've got a quick update for you, Monte. Just a little detail, because you'll enjoy this. This is just for people who enjoy the deep lore of Summoning Insight, want to keep track on old stories. If you go to the EG_Danny Twitch channel, it last streamed 2 months ago in April. So that was real.
Totally real, guys. We're keeping up here with the Danny numbers, and also the no face cam Lost Ark streams are really crushing it for EG sponsors, by the way, even when that happened. So of course this is how it turned out, guys. It was never about him being a content creator. It was just total bullshit.
Also disgusting that he would play the game Lost Ark, because the theme of the story of the Ark was actually a righteous God washing away all the sin from the world, which is exactly the opposite of what Danny and his family allowed to happen in his case.
Jesus Christ.
But to your point, though, Monte, that I was just going to finish up on, in Counter-Strike, I think there are tangible differences when you have like certain casting duos, for example, casting something. I think that actually does have a meaningful impact. If you have like Henry and Sadakist or something like that, I think there is a real in League. At least in like Western League, I really don't feel that that's that strong. I think sometimes if you have like a casting trio for a final or a world semi or something, people will like rave about it a little bit. But I do think the actual impact on viewership is very limited. So I think in one sense it's very risky for her. But as you say, like if her goal is to sort of eventually transition across, then then it's obviously a good thing.
Let me put it this way. besides money, which again is always going to be capped in League of Legends because they have a monopoly on what Sjokz can charge to do things. Can she get bigger in League than she already is? No. Like it's purely from a career perspective. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I left League of Legends to go do Overwatch League, was because I couldn't get bigger than I was in League of Legends. It was actually impossible at the time. So what was my career trajectory? I wanted to learn other skills. I wanted to be part of creating this thing. And it fucking sucks that it failed for a variety of reasons. But the opportunity was for major career growth, which then led to me doing a bunch of other stuff in terms of consulting, in terms of running Flashpoint. Like all of these things gave me additional skills. Where if I just stayed as a caster in League of Legends, I would have eventually just found myself in this predicament where at the time, at least I could negotiate against Riot because I always had OGN, right? There were two forces within the scene, and OGN I knew was ride or die with me. They had my back the whole way through. Awesome company to work with. And the thing about Koreans is that culturally, they are insanely loyal. Like once you're together and once you pledge loyalty to each other, basically, like they're very trustworthy, like just culturally very trustworthy. So, I love the people I worked with at OGN. For that reason. And they also, loved when I would antagonize Riot because they hated Riot. So they thought it was fucking hilarious. And like they enjoyed me doing it because I could move the needle for them in ways that they couldn't do publicly. So, this is all to say that if I was Sjokz, here's just some facts for you guys. So how can I couch this in sort of a vague way? My agent came to me with an offer from a major American sports league to do some video game content. That offer was triple the best day rate that I have ever had. And it was for something that got very low viewership. If you are Sjokz, okay, and you want to continue to be kind of in the eye of esports, you can easily do a bunch of Counter-Strike 2 content. I imagine you could sign a contract with ESL or Blast very readily. And you could do all of these side gigs, this kind of work, things like Twitch Rivals, things that people don't know about, which makes you way more money, guys, like way more money, like gross money. And you don't have to like sacrifice your popularity to do it. So my question would be, really, what is the upside to continuing to work with Riot if you're Sjokz? Like, it's not money. It's not additional fame. She can actually do more for her career in terms of popularity by just straight moving to CS2. And especially with CS2 coming out, I mean, this is going to be true of a bunch of casters, you know what I mean? Or a bunch of desk hosts, because as you put, Rich, I don't think she moves the needle for the desk, at least in League of Legends. And, I would just start to look at other potential opportunities because the ceiling has been reached, I think, in terms of her League of Legends career. And she's not going to make additional, significant additional money. Riot's going to draw the hard line like they have with all of the casters' rates and say no more. Like, this is where we're willing to go, no more. And that's it. That's it.
I've got a detail that I should have mentioned earlier. This is where also basic journalism skills are OP as fuck in a media landscape with constant stimuli and people getting lost in the story, etc. One of the first things you do, like I did in my Frankie video, is you establish a timeline so you know who's telling the truth and what happened first. Here's a detail that I bet even people in this call, I didn't know myself. I just looked it up now and realized it. I didn't think of this myself. Do you know why I know the players didn't decide any of those demands, Monte? The demands were posted before the vote ever took place. You can go look up the timeline. Publicly, the demands were posted before there was ever a vote.
So my counter argument to that was it could have been the council of players that had decided on those demands with the leadership, the board of the LCSPA. So some of the players might have had a say in that, to be fair.
Might. The word might is doing all the lifting there. By the way, why do I need to have... Here's the thing I love about people like Philip Aram. They want specifics and things like that, but they're never willing to give anything more than vagaries themselves. That everything's, well, it could do, and it might do, and maybe in the players do it. Like, by the way, can we just acknowledge one last thing as well? When he did that insane thing where he read the minds of pro players and said that, like, they sit there and look down the line at the people they play with, and they just really care about that person as a human being and how he does, and they don't care if he comes from Korea or from nothing. What the fuck was he talking about? What the fuck was he talking about when he did that? Like, that to me was pure fiction. I don't know about you, Rich, what your experience with players is, but like, Even most successful teams aren't actually friends. Even in successful teams, by the way, sometimes even at the end of your success, you get that guy booted out the team. It's not really that the team just let him go. To me, that was so crazy because I actually thought I was establishing a fairly reasonable point that most people, by the way, he himself implied it with why players shouldn't demand less money, act in their own self-interest first and foremost. That's just assumed to me in your profession, you know.
Yeah, I think having worked with like a lot of different styles of players, and I mean, generally speaking, I would say that you'll get one or two people. Obviously, this is purely anecdotal and it can vary. And I'm sure that Cloud9 roster, when they were first having success together or whatever, were generally very friendly or whatever. But it's usually a couple of people. I mean, Vander and Jankos, for example, seemed like pretty good friends when they were on H2K. My understanding is they don't even really talk that much after H2K, so I don't even know how much of a friendship that even was. But it's not like they're not skipping arm in arm down the street to get ice cream after scrims, you know. Usually it's, oh, what's that? Last scrim over? Oh, and then they just all go on fucking Fortnite or whatever it is they do after they play scrims, like zoned in, not socializing. Like the idea that successful teams are like best buddies or anything like that, that is definitely a rarity. And I also think, by the way, that's one of the reasons, and I don't necessarily think this was like contingent to any success they had or whatever. In fact, I know it's not, because I'll give you a second example immediately afterwards. That G2 team was legitimately got on pretty well. Like they were generally all sort of friends. But as I said, you'll notice then they added Flak to the roster, and not particularly overwhelmingly awesome historical team. And everyone raved about Flax and how much of a good friend he was and so on. So I don't think there's really a particular correlation there anyway. And I think friendship is definitely monster overrated in sports and esports for sure.
I don't think that's controversial. As we know, some of the greatest sports teams of all times were just dicks to each other.
And Jordan and Pippen, like, yeah, I mean, Shaq and Kobe. In fact, you can say that the more successful they are at the absolute echelons of the highest sport, sometimes the more adversarial they are. I mean, if you are a born winner and you have that, you know, that quote unquote, till he's got that dog in him, often that means you do bite the people who are next to you if they fuck up. So, yeah, I think it's doesn't mean anything. Oh, by the way, tiny small aside, because I've just it's just still on my screen from earlier. Did you guys know that this honestly, this might be the most mind-blowing thing of this whole scenario. Did you know that Doublelift is 30 next month? He's 30. That man-child streaming with the mental age of a 15-year-old telling you, I didn't realise we might actually not play the video games. That guy is 30 next. That guy's 30 next month. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I've always thought the problem Doublelift has is he's got the technology the best Asian players have, but then the brain of a Westerner. It's the worst. It's the best and worst of both worlds at the same time. It's just all merged together. If people don't know, by the way, the reason Doublelift would be entitled makes the most sense. He's a guy who didn't work a real job. He came from being some teenage prodigy to literally being kicked out of his house, to going into the LCS, to playing for years and years and years, having all the success, getting paid enormous amounts of money. Like, if people knew how many more millions he's made than like Reckless, like, it's ridiculous. It's actually a joke how much money he's made. He's being paid a king's ransom. In fact, many kings. You get a few kings for that. Then on top of that, you think of his whole career. He's done stuff like, there's that time, look, it was years and years ago before even all the pop-off. There was that time he just tweeted and had said that, like, the FBI was investigating him having like 200k of crypto stolen because you just know his password was Doublelift or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's on that fucking level. He's not really a smart guy, is he? Like I said, there's all the shit about the TSM stuff, like where he should have been in, but then he said he didn't want to be. Like, the whole thing's a fucking train wreck, mate. The joke is, like I said in my little TikTok, I love about Doublelift. I unironically love him because he's also another Seinfeld character, just some wacky fucking, what's his name? Like, I can't remember the name of the guy who was played by the Jurassic Park guy. The one who, Newman. He's like Newman because Reggie has to be Kramer. He's Newman, Reggie's mate there in that sense. He comes in, like, hey, Jerry, what's going on? I'm like, oh, brilliant, Newman's back. Let's see what stupid shit he's going to do. Because the thing about Doublelift is, you see it in those videos about the LCSPA. It's like he himself is reacting in real time to his own words. And he's sort of shocked, like, oh, shit, what have I just said? Oh, and you can just see the little look on his face, like, oh no. And then also, this is what, I've said this years ago. I did a whole thing on Somebody Insight. He has the worst poker face of all time, because when it is just all fine, he's laughing like, haha, I don't even care, guys. But then suddenly he'll go like, he looks like he's in the fucking Blair Witch Project, like. And when those eyes come out, homie, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and I can see everything bare inside there, mate. So that's enough of that. Right.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.